Chameleon Specimens by Helen.
Hello. So, my name is Helen Kairo, and I'm a specimen preparator. When I was a young girl, about 7 or 8 years old, I really loved museums, and I mean, I still do. I have these vivid memories of going to museums and looking at all the, skeletons and stuff like that. And one of my most vivid memories is going to the Natural History Museum in Beijing, where one of the floors they had a human anatomy exhibit. And it's not a great memory because they were all wet specimens. Full-on humans dissected, wet specimens. It was not great. It traumatized me for many years. And I thought it would get better as I aged, but a couple of years ago, I was in my 30s, I went back with all my education, my understanding, and I was traumatized for a few more years. So maybe not. And this kind of brings me to this central problem. Museums have a lot of stuff. People come by and they learn about this stuff. But from a structural standpoint, museums have these two sides. There's collections and there's exhibitions. And these things seem to have a disconnect because the techniques are more or less the same. Study skins have a lot in common with taxidermy, and you're just, you're stuffing these animals for study. But different people use them in different ways, and they're not, and things, things for collections are not necessarily useful for exhibitions. Exhibition things are not necessarily useful for collections. Study specimens are better for things like determining variations in plumage. Taxidermy dioramas are better at teaching the public about, animal behavior in nature, depicting them in their habitat, and giving them context. So, yeah. So, to go back to it, wet specimens or fluid specimens are some of the least audience-friendly specimens. And I think, it's hard to argue that. So, but they have their place, right? So originally, they were meant for a simple preservation. They preserved the physical structures for study. And as museum workers and specimen preparators, we sort of revel in their unique charm and the information they contain. But we have to understand that, turducken, it's a acquired taste. It is not something that everybody can appreciate. So the public audience is often less enthused, and let's put it bluntly, about dead things in jars. The urine-colored fluid a lot of times doesn't help either. It tends to help. So in public surveys, fluid specimens are kind of the least popular. I did a survey a couple years ago, museums that worked at, and they were universally described as creepy, grotesque, Victorian. A lot of museums don't have them on public display, or there's a much smaller proportion of fluid specimens on public display for this reason. I mean, there's definitely fans of that aesthetic, but they are a small subset of museum goers. Okay, so here's the problem. The image of wet specimens is a barrier against examination by the public, and we should do something about that. Because fluid specimens have unique advantages. They allow us to preserve soft tissue and structures in ways that taxidermy can't. They're a lot more economical than plastination. And we shouldn't get rid of them. We should do something about them. What can we do? Well, we can make them better. In the same way that study skins and taxidermies are variations on the same techniques, we could be exploring techniques to give fluid specimens context. So wait, where's my photo? I'm sorry. So I'm a specimen preparator. I do a lot of preps. One of the things that I've been trying to do is to give specimens context, to prepare fluid specimens in a different way that is more acceptable to the public. So one of the things that we should do, one of the things that I've been trying to do is to aim to show specimens as animals, not as dead animals. So sorry, kind of thrown off. Okay, so I want to sort of prepare specimens in a way to show that these are creatures with context. They came from somewhere. They have a habitat. They have natural behaviors. Within them are intricate organ systems and with distinct functions, but they're part of a larger whole. And I think that if we adapt the way that wet specimens are prepared, I think we could be getting a lot more mileage out of them. So one of the reasons that you don't see wet specimens a lot in modern museums, like if you go to like a lot of older collections, they're still a larger part of exhibits, but you don't see them in modern museums very much, is because that a lot of times visitors can't see past the preservation method to appreciate the animals and their anatomical structures. But if we sort of think about the way that we present them and give them context, we actually can do that. And fluid specimens are, in and of themselves, a huge part of collections and collections history and collections culture, but with some tweaks and adaptations, they can be part of exhibitions as well. All right, thank you. All right.